Hallelujah. Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome once again to the D.C.B channel. My name is Zurishaddai. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located at 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn. Giving all glory to the God of the universe, Yehudah, the Father of all things and everything. On this day, we thank the Most High God, and I bid to you all an early Shabbat Shalom Aleichem. Once again, as we've been doing on a weekly basis, Nasik Zurishaddai Yehudah will be highlighting certain points in the Sidra of Wayishlach, which was done last week on the Shabbat, but as he does on a weekly basis, he reviews and highlights certain points. So, how are you, Nasik, on this day?
I'm doing great. In Baruch Hashem, thankful, and also, for those knowing it's Hanukkah season, those that tune into this channel should be in for a great treat here on Hanukkah stories coming from this the Shabbat just passed, and plus tonight, from a great teacher, Chief Abdiel. So I'm gonna try to be a little brief this day, the Sidra, because yourself gonna be pretty tasked tonight. So I'd like to first of all give praise to the Supreme Trinity Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Due respects to the leadership of D.C.B, Chief Prince Jeriel, and also for one of the hard-working brothers up there, Chief Uzael, and all the other princes of Chief and Maureen and brothers and sisters of D.C.B and the Kohanim that might be listening to some talk. Greet you, tongue my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and the early Shabbat Shalom, and also Happy Hanukkah for those that might be watching at this particular time.
Hallelujah. Shabbat Shalom.
I know it's that this is pretty long Sidra, but I'm gonna try to be a little bit brief, only because there's so much happening today and within this particular Sidra, and plus the season that we're in. So not to be labored, and I'm sure a lot of people got a lot of insight already from the various teachers from various communities. All right, this particular Sidra, we find a couple of things that I'm gonna just bring out. Jacob, he wrestled with we discovered later on, according to Hosea, a godlike being, which is referred to as an angel, but in this particular Sidra is called a man. We find that Jacob and Esau meets and part peacefully. Dinah is violated by Shechem. Shimon and Levi is slaves the males of Shechem, and the city is plundered. Rachel dies giving birth to Benjamin and is buried near Bethlehem. Isaac dies and is buried in Hebron. Then give a little bit of the genealogy of Yaakov and Esau. So I'm gonna start off with coming from the Sidra goes from the 32nd chapter of Genesis, 4th verse, and ends at the 36th chapter and 43rd verse of Genesis. For those that might have a regular Bible as opposed to a Masoretic text, I'm not familiar with the Sidra, how has this broken up. So we're going to start from the beginning of 4th verse, just a little bit, if you get it before you, Chief.
Genesis chapter 32, verse 4. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother, and unto the land of Seir, the field of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall ye say unto my lord Esau, Thus saith thy servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. And I have oxen and asses and flocks and men servants and maid servants, and I have sent to tell my lord that I may find favor in thy sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and moreover he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him.
All right, hold right there. Now we're going to stop right there just for a moment. Now, first of all, we notice Yaakov took some things. He made a lot of change since he came back from Laban. He's not the same Yaakov that left home. You know, he matured greatly being in his father-in-law's house. And some of the things we tend to notice is that he sends representatives to represent him.
Right.
So he sends a delegation. That's the first thing he does. And then as we get ready to go through it, we're gonna find out also that but when you say representatives, you act in humility. That's automatically. And then going to use prayer. He's going to use gifts, to reduce his brother's anger in his eyes. All right. So these are some of the things we're going to look for as we go forward. So now we know how Yaakov left. Yaakov left on bad terms. And then what we tend to sometimes overlook, though he sent messengers there, and it's always a commentary about whether these was also angelic beings or not. We don't know. But we know that he had a camp of angels there, which means a dualism. And this is before he even actually split his camp up. Like it's another type of camp, accompanying him. Similar to one of the interpretations about the Shalom, which is the ladder that had the angels ascending and descending. So now, when we look at this particular portion here, that we read where he sent the men, but we never read where the men had went and came back. They're just reporting. So that just brought a lot of attention to, well, did you ever go? But I'm reporting that they came. So that's what makes a lot of mysteries here, the story being brief, and people tend to read into that. And one of the things is that he went to let Esau know I'm coming, but yet it seems like Esau's already got the word that he's coming ahead of time. So, from that particular region, and he had to pass through that territory. So those are some of the things, you tend to take notice that the men said, Esau is coming with 400 men, but he already coming even before the men even said, that Yaakov is coming. So it's just some things to consider on the way. All right, so we're gonna pick it up from there.
Verse 8. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and with distress, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 camps. And he said, if Esau come to the one camp and smite it, then the camp which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O God, and Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, O Yehudah, who says unto me, return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will do thee good. I am not worthy of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast shown unto thy servant. For my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become 2 camps.
Hold right there. Now, we never read where the Creator said, I'm going to do you good. That's the added thing. We read where you're going to protect them and everything like that. So that's like an implied. It would be assumed from what the Creator told him at when he at Bethel, and what Yaakov implying now. So those are some of the things, and when he's talked about he became 2 camps in that sense, because he asked for food to eat, clothes to wear, and and bring it back to his father's house in peace. The Creator just said, I would be with you there, and I would not leave you, in that sense. So there's other stuff, that, might have been implied, but not actually said when we read in the beginning. And when he got ready to leave to come back to his land, to his father's house. Also, when you talk about greatly afraid, what is Yaakov afraid of? And in the year out, he's going to explain it more so, and within this particular verse, because the thing is that a man that traveled, and stayed in the country for 20 years under harsh conditions, and most shepherds is kind of brave because they got to protect the flock from predators.
Right.
And so what it doesn't seem natural for him to say, I'm really, really terrified of the individual. So we're gonna find out a little more and explore that. And
verse 12.
Yes.
Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. For I fear him, lest he come and smite me, the mother with the children.
All right there. So now, sometimes a person don't worry about their skin in a game as a warrior, but you worry about those that's nigh unto you that could be hurt. And sometimes, people say, well, look, I can fight better if you're not with me. But if you're with me, I'm constantly, worrying about protecting you in this battle. So now he got his children and he got his wife with him. And they said, Esau gonna hurt him where it really hurts. That's what they fear. And also you could fear, I'm gonna have to hurt my brother in defense of myself. But as far as me personally, I could deal with it. I dealt with Laban. I dealt traveling alone. But if they destroy my family, which I work so hard for, injure them, I'm gonna feel it. So sometimes people will feel more pain for another individual than if they're on their own skin. And such as a good parent would do. A parent will feel more hurt if their children happen to be hurt, as opposed to them getting hurt. So that makes a difference. Yeah, that's a slight delay. All right. So now, after that, so he's more concerned about his family, and he's talking about his fear. But let's just pick up this a little bit more. I'm trying to go through this here kind of fast.
And it reads, and thou sayest, I'll surely do thee good, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And he lodged there that night, and took of that which he had with him a present for Esau his brother, 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk camels and their coats, 40.
Okay, we go with that. We pick it up 17 verse.
Verse 17. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove by itself, and said unto his servants, pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove. And
And he commanded.
And he commanded the foremost, saying, when Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, who art thou? And whither goest thou? And who are these before thee? Then thou shalt say, they are thy servants Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my Lord, even unto Esau. And behold, he also is behind us.
Okay. Now we know he had sent 3 droves in, all right, with the same message. Okay. Right. All right. Now, as we jump down here to the 22nd verse, let's pick it up from there. 22nd verse. That's
verse 22. It reads, so the present passed over before him, and he himself lodged that night in the camp. And he rose up. He rose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 handmaids and his 11 children, and passed over the ford of the Jabbok. And he took them and sent them over the stream, and sent over that which he had.
Right there. Now, he's going back and forth across this Jabbok, this particular stream. See, most times, most people get the concept that Yaakov just crossed over one time.
Right.
But he's going back and forth. He's setting up bands of, caravans to give gifts to his brother Esau. He divided the camps when he found out that, Esau's coming with 400 men. Can't say whether it's coming for enmity or enmity. So he don't know if it's love or hate coming this way. He doesn't know that he come with a large entourage. Now, anybody that's studied the history about Esau at this time and the place in the territory that he happened to be at, that used to be the Horites up that way. There were some big giant people, and he had conquered that, and so he's either in the process of continuing conquering it, and that's why normally he might roll like that, because if you just have a new conquest of a new territory and they're giants and people of the nature of that area, then is it really settled yet with peace? And so a lot of times we can misread, knowing that he already made his habitation in this settlement up in Mount Seir, up where the Horites were. So that brings a different light why he might roll with 400 guys. Yaakov not being sure, because we read later on that Esau had conquered Mount Seir and conquered the Horites.
Right.
So when you conquer a people, did you completely wipe them out yet? Or you got control, but not completely wiped them out altogether. So those are some of the things, might be considered why Esau is traveling with such an entourage to meet a brother, and why he might have insight about who's coming in the territory, passing through the neighborhood. If that was your thing already of fighting and conquering a particular territory. I just figured I'd just bring that out. It's just something to think about, considering, because sometimes we can misread a person's posture, not knowing why he's doing it.
Right.
But it would appear one way and it might be something completely different.
Right.
All right. So after that, pick it up from there.
Verse 25.
Right.
And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was strained as he wrestled with him.
Okay, hold on right there. It's an interesting word that's used here. All right. First, the word Yabok. Yabok is the brook he actually crossed. But then when they use the word for wrestle, they use the word Wayishlach. Wayishlach, which means and he wrestled. From the same word of Yabrok, like a play on words here. Because he was going back and forth across that river, that stream, bringing items back and forth. And then the last time he sent some items back, and he remained there himself on that side of the stream, of the river. And the Yabok is actually a strong tributary that crosses the Jordan later on, which is pretty much in sight. And it's a rough stream, and you got to, be careful crossing at certain seasons. So now he left there, and it's at night. You figure he sent all his servants, everybody over there, and he left himself alone after he'd been back and forth on that side, for whatever item. And then you notice the family was first, and then later on he sent the servants with all the possessions, whatever possessions he had, other than what we read about earlier. So now we could pick it up from we're talking about the wrestling, and the next verse.
Verse 27. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go except thou bless me.
All right there. Now, one of the things that the struggle, we don't know what set it off. We don't know. If you sent everybody over there, who would you encounter? And why would the fight jump off in the first place? And why would the fight be such a rough fight where you go at it all night long? And this is the first time you're having a conversation. The conversation is let me go. That's the first words that we read about that's undertaken. Normally, if you're rumbling with somebody, especially in the dark, you can't see that good. Your vision is obscure, but yet you up there rumbling back and forth in a tussle, would seem like life and death. And then you're going to the first thing a person going to say is, let me go, instead of why you attacked me in the first place, what this is all about. And then it says, but he get a hint, it says because, and he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. So now if the day breaketh, what they got to do? You only fight at night? When most of armies fought in the daytime. Most people didn't fight too much at night. If anything, they try to ambush you at night. Right. Like Abraham Avinu, that come out to rescue a lot, and the people that was taken by those four kings. So now, at this particular juncture, you would say, oh, is he a vampire? And you say, what is it that you worry about the daybreak? So we know that this is an extraordinary being, and to show you that this extraordinary being has such great power. And we know Yaakov was no cream puff. If he able to lift a rock, over 20-some years ago, lift a rock that everybody had to go and move the bowl and flex it off a well so that the cattle could drink, just to impress Raquel and feed her and water her sheep. Then he was rumbling. He used to rumbling. He used to mixing it up. From the womb, he was able to rumble and mix it
Right.
up. So he's not a lightweight in himself. So it ain't like he's afraid to get involved in a scrimmage. And it shows he's not afraid to get involved in a scrimmage. Sometimes you fear what could happen around you and people close to you in your scrimmage. So now if we go a little bit further, what Yaakov says, I mean, what happens here? We had the 28th verse.
Verse 28. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For thou hast striven with God and with men and hast prevailed.
Okay, what's interesting here is that 20 years ago or so, when he was asked his name, you know what I mean, he used deception. And it was under, you know what I mean, obscure vision. Now, 20 years later, 20 plus years later, now when he's asked his name this time, he admit to the truth that this is who I am. You know, this is who I am. So, but he didn't see the change within himself. So the angel saying, or this being that he's wrestling with, which we find out later on by even Hosea, you know, the 12th chapter, that is an angelic being, that he recognized Yaakov made a change, whereas Yaakov didn't recognize you no longer that same guy. You know, you don't have to go the way you went before. Now, one of the things when Esau was coming at him, one of the things we can consider is that if you know a man come with 400 people, why don't you try to run? It's a little difficult with other entourage, all the stuff you got.
Right.
When Laban covered, 7 days, 7 days in about a day. So running was not so much of an option. Then why don't you retreat and turn back? He couldn't turn back because he made an oath with Laban not to cross over again. So he's between a rock and a hard place. I can't just, run away, with all this I got and my family, because they're young, and not only they're young, I don't really have that many trained warriors to confront such an army such as that. And I got cattle and livestock there. So I'm not really in a good position. And I just made an oath with my father-in-law not to even go back, because even if somebody pursuing me, I'm bringing harm to them. And the thing was, I wouldn't cause harm going back over. That was their agreement. Laban not supposed to come across to do harm to him, and you're not supposed to come across to do harm to Laban. He might not want to fight Laban. He might look for Laban to fight his fight, and therefore bringing harm and danger to his Laban. So between his oath, he couldn't even back up. He had to face up to what's going on. So now the being said, you no longer is Yaakov, and they said, what? Let's finish up this.
It says, and he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel, for thou hast striven with God and with men and hast prevailed. And Jacob.
That's good. That's good. That's good right there. So to let you know that right then and there that, he's striven with God and and man. In other words, the men he's striving with, he strove with Esau in the past, strove with Laban later, and now you're going to have to deal with Esau one more time, confront Esau. And one of the things is that when we look at this situation, you always got to say, well, if the Creator came in a dream to warn Laban, why he didn't come in a dream to warn Esau, don't mess with Yaakov? Because Yaakov was honest with Laban. He dealt righteous with Laban, and Laban dealt deceitfully with him. On the other hand, it was Yaakov who had to make amends and right or wrong and face up to what he did in the past, because it was not just, outwitting his brother, but he outwitted his father as well. So sometimes you got to face up to the things that you did in life, and sometimes that could be a struggle. When do I make a turnaround? When I make this 100-degree turnaround? When I make this change? That's why change is never comfortable, but it's quite often necessary. All right. So as we go a little bit further in here, it said, pick it up
Verse 30. And Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved.
Okay, now, first, Yaakov himself said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. How could he know that this being is able to bless him when this being crying out to say, let me go? You know, that should always should resonate, that I'm wrestling with you. I don't know what this struggle is all about, but then you talking about the day getting ready to come. So now something clicked. You must be something, you know, extraordinary. And I ain't gonna let you go after we struggle all night long. I didn't get no sleep. So I'm in a struggle for my life. And now you tell me to let you go because the day is coming. You know, maybe I could see better what I'm fighting with and what I'm working with, you know, at this time, you know. And now I got wounded on top of that.
Right.
I got wounded, you know what I mean? And so some people say, well, was this a physical fight or was it a spiritual fight? But we know it had to be physical and not just spiritual because, you know, a guy got a physical wound that lasted a while.
Right.
So we know the fight was definitely real in this case. And then he looked for a blessing. So I need something out of this battle. I can't do this for nothing, you know. And when he asked about the being's name, you know, and the being said, well, I asked after my name. We don't get a name of any kind of angelic being until around the Babylonian captivity. That's the first time that you have a so-called, you know, angels being named in scripture or in our culture. Right. You know, you start with Daniel, stuff like that during the Babylonian captivity. Prior to that, you don't see where angels actually named throughout the scriptures. And just for you know, a bit of information, that's one of the reasons was the debate about Daniel being incorporated in the scriptures. Because, right. You know, because he had an angel name, and there was nothing normal behind that, as right. well as having a Babylonian name dropped on him, as well. You know, as well as a lot of people at that time, which is pretty much going to be a segue for Chief Abdiel with the Hasmonean period. Okay. All right, we could move on. Yes.
Verse 32. And the sun rose upon him as he passed over Peniel, and he limped upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not the sinew of the thigh vein, which is upon the hollow of the thigh, unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh, even in the sinew of the thigh vein. Okay, how about that?
I just want to elaborate on that just a little bit because, you know, it's like a dietary thing amongst those that follow strict rabbinic law, what they call kashrut. And they usually don't eat that hind quarter of an animal unless you take that vein out. That's been a custom, and they use it as a law, you know, a rabbinic law. Unless you move that vein, surgically move that vein out, then they say that the meat is permissible besides the slaughter that's involved. You know, the certain way you got to slaughter it rabbinically. Now, that's for those that follow a rabbinic, you know, approach, you know, and, you know, in that area there, because we know during Pesach, you know, you got the whole animal. And we know this became a custom. It's not a law that's mandated by the Tanakh directly. But they constantly are reminded of that divine struggle with Yaakov, whose name was changed to Yisrael. Now, it said, no longer will you be called Yaakov. That means that what Yaakov do, he deceived and he ran. But you stood and fought. And this, you know what I mean? And so you was fighting from the womb. But after you came out the womb, you used deception to get over. You know, and you know, and you fled from the land to get away. But now you finally confronted. So that's why I say you no longer shall be called that, because that is not you. So usually when you talk about a name, it usually has a character, a religious and spiritual element concerning you. in relationship to what you're supposed to become. Right. So those that's why a name, especially for Israelites, are you living up to your name? Are you becoming that? Right. What is the spiritual connection to that name, for that name, and you, in relationship to your Creator?
Right.
All right. So now, after that, it talk about, therefore the children of Israel eat not the sinew of the thigh, the thigh bone. Now that means right then and there, the writer of his time said that they kept that kind of custom.
Right.
And we know who's the writer of Genesis, at this time, and that's Moshe. So it's and mostly a kosher market, and mostly in America, they usually get the front part of the animal, and the rest to go someplace else. Where in places like Israel, stuff where meat is a lot more higher, they surgically remove that vein out the animal hind parts. So that's another episode, and I think for discussion for those that's into that kashrut stuff. All right. So we're into 33rd chapter, right quick.
We're in the book of Genesis, chapter 33, verse 1.
Yes.
And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came with him 400 men, and he divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the 2 handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph in hindermost. And he himself passed over before them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother.
Okay, hold right there. Now, one of the things that's interesting is that the way he divided up, a parent shouldn't show partiality amongst the children. And the way it's divided, it shows the partiality they're showing to the children right there in that particular time, and who we care for the most. And the thing is that as a parent, it's not necessary that you focus on treating each child equally. You treat each child uniquely, because they are a unique individual. They got their own characteristics. So each child is treated according to their unique ability and your uniqueness. That's how you deal with them. Not saying I'm worried about trying to make sure everybody's equal, because everybody are different. They're not the same.
Right.
So a lot of times, we focus on saying, well, I try to be equal, but most times I'm being partial. But then if a child knows you deal with their uniqueness and their character and say, I got this that the other brothers don't have, then, they'd be satisfied, because you satisfy me in what I'm into, and you see me for what I am. You're able to deal with my character. And that's why one of the times one part in the Proverbs, it says, teach a child in a way he should go, and will know why depart.
Right.
Because you will teach your values, and you teach it in a way that's receptacle for that individual.
Right.
For that individual child, you're teaching them where they can recognize, that this lesson is for me, and I understand that lesson. But it may not be the same lesson and uniqueness for the next individual child of yours. So that's one of the things that parents got to try to master as they go. And and no matter what, it's never really a handbook on parenting, because every child is unique. So usually, if a parent has their first child, that's their experiment. That's their experiment child. The next child, and if it had to be maybe a different sex now, that's another experiment, because now I'm just starting to learn how to deal with, and say the first one might have been a boy, or the first one might have been a girl. I'm just learning how to deal with a girl a little bit, and now my next one's a boy. Now I got to start this process all over, and it's a whole nother different dimension I got to deal with. So because now they're unique, but then the mentalities of it. Now, if you got boys, then you say, okay, I dealt with this guy. I was a little strong, a little hard, kind of man up. Maybe I was a little too hard. Maybe they didn't grasp this. I try to make him into me instead of him into him.
Right.
And grooming him to be what he's gonna be. So those are experiments. And usually when you get to your latter children, you get better. You know, because now you done somewhat made progress and analyze and recognize the uniqueness and you also, the greatest thing you realize is that what I want in a child, it may not necessarily what the child want or need. So I'm dealing with the child need, and that's one of the greatness in it. So we're gonna move on just a little bit more in this area here.
Verse 4.
All right, yes.
And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and the children and said, who are these with thee? And he said, the children whom God has graciously given thy servant. Then the handmaids came near, and they and their children, and they bowed down. And Leah also and her children came near and bowed down. And after came Joseph near and Raquel, and they bowed down. And
Okay,
he
hold
said,
right there.
Right.
I want to stop right there at eight before we get to the 8th verse. You notice the women preceded their children, except for Joseph preceded his mother. And now Joseph being the youngest boy, you know, but the thing is that it was always the mothers first, you know, the handmaids, then their children. Leah and her children. But now you got Joseph in front of his mother. You know, so you wonder, say, well, why he's not behind? Why he's out front? You know, and it make you think and consider the Sidra that's coming up now, you know, this week. You know, make you consider the Sidra that's coming up now next week, because now are you the limelight? Are you egotistical? You know, are you really think you all that? Because we read later on that he was a very fair countenance, you know, as a man, nice looking man. And that, you know, and he had certain privileges and felt like he had a certain type of honor.
Right.
Already endowed within him. So, and the thing is, what people don't realize is that the other brothers are not dummies.
Right.
They have insight as well.
Right.
You know, so they can recognize, you know, how their father respond to their parent and how they respond to them. And then coming from an Eastern culture. All right, so now we'll pick it up in the 8th verse just a little bit.
Verse 8, and he said, what meanest thou by all this camp which I met? And he said, to find favor in the sight of my Lord.
Okay.
And Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Let that which thou hast be thine.
I just like to focus on that last thing. I have enough, my brother. Esau referred to Yaakov as his brother. That's genuine. He wept and wept on his neck and kissed him, you know, and everything. And Yaakov kissed him and hugged him. Yaakov still acting subservient, you know what I mean? And usually they refer to those different things that was sent. It was called BINAH, you know, different gifts that he sent. It's called BINAH. That was brought to Esau. The word would change later on, you know what I mean, which you call, you know, baraka, which is from the word, you know, which is blessings, right? And though BINAH is mentioned 5 times within the thing, the last thing you're going to talk about is blessings. Now, one of the things is that some people will say Esau wasn't genuine, but Esau called him his brother and recognized him as his brother. All right. But, you know, and that shows that Yaakov's suspicion of guilt and misreading Esau was bad.
Right.
Because, you know, say you rolling with 400 guys, you coming now. Oh man, I know his temperament. I know how I left. So a lot of times you feel that this is coming upon you because of what you did and misreading the guy, and like you the only one could, you know, make amends. But even in conflict, it teaches you that even in a conflict, with an argument with a brother or a fight with a brother, you're supposed to try to make amends, compromise. Here Esau had wanted to kill Yaakov for what he did. And yet he said, I'm gonna wait a while because my father will be concerned about that. And yet Yaakov, the last thing he knows was that Esau wanted to kill him. And that's how he left home. Esau wanted to kill him. And that's resonated with Yaakov all that time, coming back to face that. So, but Esau's showing himself a lot different here. All right, let's read just a little bit more. Then we jump into the 34.
Verse 10. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found favor in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For as much as I have seen thy face, as one seeth the face of God,
Right,
and thou was pleased, and thou was pleased with me.
Okay, so that's like a guy going making a pilgrimage to a shrine or something like that there. All right, so you know, and we usually say in the streets that he's throwing a lot of grease up on him, you know, all in them up. He showed, man, said flattery, throwing a lot of flattery out there, you know. So, but the thing is that the way he had these droves and gifts and the way he come down and with the battle, wrestling with the angel and make him look like he's worn down. He don't look muscular, like a threat, and he bows 7 times. And usually when he bowed those 7 bows approaching Esau, and he halting, limping, and bowing, and giving all kind of respect to Esau, his brother, who he thought from the beginning. So it made a great difference. Hold on a second, one more time. All right. So now, he looked the part of a humble individual. He don't look like a king, when you're approaching Esau. And he gave him a lot of stuff. And out the herds, at first he didn't mention the camels. So camels the most valuable part of the herds, but that's what was presented to Esau. And Esau and say, I have enough. But Yaakov want to urge him to take that. All right. And then what it says, we're going to pick it up from where we at, 14th verse.
14th verse, that's where you want me to pick it up from? At verse 11. We ended off at verse 11.
Okay. Let me see if I need to go through that. Okay. Oh yeah. I might omit this here. I picked it up from 11.
Verse 11, it says, Take, I pray thee, my gift that is brought to thee, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. And he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I'll go before thee. And he said unto him, My Lord knowest that the children are tender, and that the flocks and herds given suck are a care to me. And if they overdrive them one day, all the flocks will die.
Okay.
All right.
Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over.
Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I'll journey on gently, according to the pace of the cattle that are before me, and according to the pace of the children, until I come unto my Lord, unto Seir.
Right there. Which we know that, we don't read where that ever happened. But one of the things that take my blessing, you know what I mean? Take no blessing from me. That's the last thing he told Esau. So it's a lot of comments on that particular verse, that when we look at Yaakov presenting these gifts, and Esau said, I have enough. And Yaakov said, take my blessing. Before it was Milcah, and the last thing he says is blessing. It's reminding that I stole something, a blessing from you. So now you could take my blessing, which you figure I took yours.
Right.
So, I'm trying to repay back and make amends for what I took from you. Now, Esau blessing, I just wanted to focus on that just for a moment, not too long, is that Esau blessing was materialistic. That was his blessing. The field and everything that's upon it, that was a blessing that Yaakov had got from his father. But later on, he had to live as a mercenary, as a sword, as a servant, with the last blessing that Yisrael gave him. So now materialistic is some comments in reference to it. The blessing, which we're going to read. I'm going to go ahead, and then we're just going to focus on the next chapter, and that'll be it for the night. With Dinah, so to speak.
It says.
All right, before we get to that, the 34th chapter.
You want me to go to 34th chapter?
Yeah, before we get, I'm on
Chapter 34, Genesis
but not
chapter
yet.
34.
But not yet.
Not yet?
Okay. Yeah. One of the things that we look at is that they have comments in saying that when we know that because I may not cover it, I'm not going to cover it this particular time. That we know that Esau and Yaakov both come together at the end and bury Isaac. Mm-hmm. We know that Ishmael and Isaac came together to bury their father Abraham.
Right.
And we know that when they came to bury each other together, bury Isaac, that shows that Esau didn't go through with what he said in his heart.
Right.
To slay Yaakov at the death of his father. So that showed that he didn't go, and pursue that course of action. But one of the things the comments have in different writers, I just want to throw this out there and share it. Nothing I could prove. There's just something to consider. Is that when Yitzchak passed on, that Yaakov asked Esau, what do you want? You want the blessing of Abraham, which would be the land and all the land that he walked, the length and the breadth, and also all that sole of foot touch. And then Esau said, "Oh, you want all the livestock and all the cattle that our father had." So Esau pulls ahead, went and said, "I'll get back to you on that." And he posted to talk to some of his friends and said, "Which one should I take? Take all this cattle or take all this land?" And the people who posted said, "Well, look, the Amorites and the rest of them Canaanites and the Havites and all them people there, I mean, they on the land now. You had to fight all of them just to get this land." He said, "You might as well get with the cattle." So Esau took all the cattle. Hence, Yaakov was less with the inheritance of Abraham Avinu, the promise of the land. So, I just brought that out to say why it would be no controversy at the burial of their father. Because when the father died, you still have livestock, you still got, property. So I just throw that ahead of time. So now we're going to focus on Dinah, and then that'll be the last thing I deal with this week. And I'm sure I should get some comments concerning the last thing, but I'm just saying those just some viewpoints in reference to the peace and why Yaakov and Esau was able to, be at peace with one another. And also, in this particular chapter we just had read earlier, they referred to it as the children of Israel. First time that term is used for the nation of Israel in this particular chapter we just read. But I might gloss over it. So now we're in the 34th chapter of
Genesis chapter 34, verse 1.
Yeah.
And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had born unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land, saw her, and he took her and lay with her and humbled her. And his soul did cleave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spoke comfortingly unto the damsel.
All right, we're going to stop right there. All right. Now, we don't hear mention of Dinah going before Esau. We only mention the sons and the maid and the mothers going before Esau. But we don't know what happened, why Dinah is not even mentioned in that episode, amongst women. Just the maids and the sons. And they talk about the 11 children of Yaakov, as opposed to he had 12 at that particular point in time. So they got a lot of comments on that, but I just gonna share one. They say he hid out. That's one of the comments they say. But it's obvious that she's not mentioned in the chapter. And so now, and then we're looking at some time passing. So this ain't because we know when they came back, she was a young girl, little girl. Now she's mature because it's been some time in the land, and they stayed in Shechem. And so it's a lot of history that's not in time that passed that we don't tend to pay attention to. But within the same episode, you figure Joseph is about 17 coming up soon. And it's the same, same episode, episode coming up. So if Joseph is about 17, shortly in the same time when Dinah's mature, she's older than Joseph. So she's a blown up woman, maybe young, but a blown up young woman. And it said she went to see the daughters of the land. Now, some people say, well, why would she go see the daughters of the land? Being she had brothers. And out of all the patriarchs, he's the only one that had a daughter. None of the other patriarchs. Abraham never had a daughter. Yeah, Yitzchak had no daughter. It was tough enough finding a wife for the men. So it'd be kind of rough to say, well, who I'm gonna give my daughter to? Being from a patriarchal family. And you living, talking about on a mission of Abraham, serving as one and true and living God. So one suggestion is that when she went to see the daughters of the land, it's not just to go out there and party, but she had a grandmother, named Sarah. And Sarah and Abraham both brought people into the understanding. It said they enter Canaan land with all the souls they have gotten. So for her to go out to see the daughters of the land, not to see the men of the land, it's like, possibly, I'm going to educate you into our way of life because we've been living here for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to explain what we about and about the God we serve. Because I got that same spirit, that outgoing spirit. I got an outgoing spirit like my mother. I got an outgoing spirit like my grandmother. So therefore, I'm going to go ahead and try to educate the women about who we are in the land. So she went out, to meet the daughters of the land, not to meet the men in the land. That's one thing I like to make perfectly clear. Now, why she was unaccompanied, I would say
that's the great mystery.
I know. Well, it's a mystery, but I would say that she's not completely unaccompanied because being a daughter, she probably had maids and servants rolling with her too.
Okay.
Because Abraham had Yaakov had a big household with servants.
Right.
And maid servants. And even Rivka had a nurse around her. So, I'm just nothing I could substantiate straight from the book. I'm just saying that it's not like I don't believe that she just walk out there by herself with nobody from the household. Even Pharaoh's daughter, when she out there by the banks in the river bathing, she got people with her, maid servants with her. So I don't think she would be in a foreign land traveling by herself, knowing there's foreigners there. And that's why she said she went to meet the daughters of the land. And if she meeting the daughters of the land, I doubt she's gonna meet them just say by myself without a little bit of an entourage of other females with her. So this is just my viewpoint that I bring out, and I like to bring out, and in reference to that, and show and make the correlation with Sarah was able to enlighten people, win friends, influence people to a better way of life and a better lifestyle. And so I would say that it was laudable in her case. And one of the prince of the land, top-notch CHOKMAH, snatched up, lay with her. So he humbled her, and then he fell in love. Almost, similar, but the route we're taking was bad. Said Yitzchak, he wound up, saying it took, Rivka to wife, in a nice way of saying I loved her. Right. But he's married, and then he said he loved her. Not I love her, and I took her to wife. So, and usually, like I said earlier, that usually love come before the marriage, but in Yitzchak's case, the wife and then the love. So now it was the exploitation of a heathen, and then his love for this woman. But I'm just showing some similarities, but in a negative way that this was done. Also, we have a law, in our way of life that's predicated on a situation like this, that if a man see a virgin in the field and take her, our law is that she cried out and was none to save. Or also in the 1960 something or whatever, I forget, they had a documentary on Netflix about how a lot of Ethiopian Bedouins still snatch their women until that particular time and make them marry them. Just snatch them up just like that and force them into a marriage. There's a lot of tribes in Africa that was doing that even as late as, up to today. When they conquer and beat up another village, these warlords and stuff like that, they'll snatch the women's out. Some they'll cut the breasts off, and some they'll just make them be a wife, and just force them into a situation where they become a wife. And some of them be humbled so much that they don't want to go back home. They stay where they at because they say they can have a child and they fall in love with their children. I like when people study this particular portion, people say, well, she wasn't raped, but the book give it the benefit of the doubt that she was raped, and the words that's used shows a rape, situation. And also his commitment to speak peacefully to her. That means she didn't like what went down, and try to console her unto himself. So now, and he was supposed to be most honorable amongst the Shechemites of all the house of Haman. So the lesson is the honor of heathens is no honor at all. That's what it's trying to show. The honor of the wicked is no honor at all. So now we know that this will happen, and we're just going to go on just a little bit more into this particular chapter because I'm going to finish off here.
Verse 4.
Yeah.
And Shechem spoke unto his father Hamor, saying, get me this damsel to wife. Now Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter, and his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they came. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to speak with him. And the sons of Jacob came in from the field when they heard it. And the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought a vile deed in Israel in line with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not be done.
Hold on right here. Now, word travel. What happened? And not only the word travel, what happened? Can you imagine how barbaric it is that people seeing this going down in live without a curtain? All right, that's really barbaric.
Right.
Out in the open. He's a prince of the land. Everybody seeing this going down, but nobody stepped in to try to help. Rescue. And then, now he tried to talk peacefully, and then he want to marry and tell his father, go ahead, negotiate for her. But where's Dinah at the time? She's not back with the father. As we're going to find later on when you read the story carefully, she's not there at the household. She's still under his custody because they're in the land of Shechem. So, and he's the prince of Shechem. So she's under his, ward or in prison pretty much right now. And we're going to find out, with more clarity as they speak. All right, Tumshi.
Verse 8, and Hamor spoke with them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter, I pray you, give her unto him to wife, and make ye marriages with us, give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. Ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein.
I just want to read 9 again. Say, and make ye marriages with us, give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. All right, just remember that as we go on.
Verse 10,
right.
and ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein. Verse 11. Shechem said unto her father, unto her brethren, let me find favor in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me, but give me the damsel to wife.
Hold it right there. In other words, no, it's not an option.
Yep.
It's not an option.
Just trying to put it in a
whatever you
nice
say,
way.
I'm gonna give you. You know.
Right.
So, but the negotiation, you know, what I mean, whatever you negotiate and do, you know, and you can't, you know, you're gonna give me that damsel.
Right.
Right. So, it's really like I can't take no for an answer.
Right.
To a degree. Read a little bit, and I figure I'll just bring that out because it brings a whole lot of scenario to the game.
Verse 13, and the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father with guile, and spoke, because he had defiled Dinah their sister, and said unto them, we cannot do this thing, to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. Only on the condition will we consent unto you, if you will be as we are, that every male of you be circumcised. Then will we give our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people.
All right, stop right there with this one woman. All right. Now it says, right. All right. When it says, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. Only on this condition will we consent. All right. Now, but the 13th said, and the sons of Yaakov answered Shechem. All right. That means all of them had this idea. All of them had the idea. You know, and the reason I want them to say, you know, the sons, because they don't identify two. They don't identify, you know, three. It says the sons of Yaakov. That's everybody.
Right.
And you know, so it's important to realize that it's not just two people as we see later on that's motivated and, you know, and come up to say, oh, this is it. This is how we're going to roll. So all of them huddled because they heard in the field. They already was upset in the field before they got there. And Yaakov held this peace until his sons come in. And so now they from Syria. You know what I mean? These guys from their the grandfather's name is Laban.
Right.
And you know, so they got and it also their father name was Yaakov at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're gonna answer and Deceit. And then we're gonna go and pick it up from there where you left off at, Chief.
Verse 17. But if you will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then we will take our daughter and we will be gone.
Oh, right there. Take her and be gone. That means right there. If you don't hearken, that means she's not there. You know, you'll take her and go.
Right.
She's still under the custody there. All right. And he negotiated for something he already got locked away.
Right.
Yeah. No. And what they say, going from there.
Verse 18. And their words pleased Hamor, and Shechem Hamor's son.
Uh-huh.
And the young man deferred not to do the thing, because they had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was honored above all the house of his father.
If that's honor, then you can imagine how the rest of them were. Go ahead.
Verse 20. And Hamor and Shechem his son came unto the gate of their city, and spoke with the men of their city, saying, these men are peaceable with us, therefore let them dwell in the land, and trade therein. For behold, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition will the men consent unto us to dwell with us, to become one people, if every male among us be circumcised as they are circumcised. Should not their cattle and their substance, and all their beasts be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us.
All right there. Now, they figure, because there's more of them, by attrition alone, that they're going to outnumber, multiply, and pretty soon it would be nobody, no one else.
Right.
Now, CHOKMAH is like a donkey.
Right.
Abraham is referred to an ox, and even Joseph is referred to an ox later on as a symbol for the tribe of Joseph. And we have a law that says, "Thou shalt not plow with an ox and an ass together."
Right. So uneven yoke.
Yeah. Not only is it an uneven yoke, you got one that's kosher and one that's not kosher. You know what I mean? So you got one that's a clean animal and you got an unclean animal.
Right.
So clean and unclean can't work together. Either gonna be clean or gonna be unclean. But you ain't gonna merge clean and unclean, because the unclean gonna make the unclean unclean. So we got to consider that as we get into this particular portion. All right. So what else happened?
Verse 24. And unto Hamor and unto Shechem his son hearken all that went out of the gate of his city, and every male was circumcised, and all that went out of the gate of his city.
Okay, 25.
Verse 25. It came to pass on the third day, when they were in pain, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword, and came upon the city unawares, and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and went forth. The sons.
Right. The English translation a little bit different, because a lot of times it's coming openly, boldly. Like they didn't really have to, unaware, and if it's unaware, it's unaware to what CHOKMAH would conceive, but they boldly come upon it, openly from the door of Patak, which is like an opening.
Right.
All right. Well, keep going.
Verse 27. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks and their herds and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones and their wives, took they captive and spoiled, even all that was in the house.
Right. They took the women too. They just killed the males. Right.
Verse 30. And Jacob said unto Simeon and Levi, Ye have troubled me, to make me odious unto the inhabitants of the land, even unto the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I, being few in number, they will gather themselves together against me and smite me, and I shall be destroyed, and I and my house. And they said, Should one deal with our sister as with a harlot?
Okay, we're gonna stop there. I'm gonna try to pick up next time and get a chance a little bit, highlight some certain things in the next couple chapters, only because of the day of Hanukkah is here, and then we got another speaker coming. But one of the things I'd like to speak on in reference in the closing is that one of the things when they replied to their father, it was a deal they could live with, because it said, we'll give you our daughters and we will take your daughters. CHOKMAH himself said, you give us your daughters, and and you could take our daughters.
Right.
So it was already a win situation, that you can't take nobody unless I give it to you. If I'm an Israelite, I'm gonna give you who I want you to have.
Right.
But if I see something over there in your neighborhood that I want, I'm gonna take her, like you took my sister. So it was a deal more favorably for the sons of Yaakov in that area. Right. Another essence is that you brought him into talking about the circumcision. The circumcision is not Yaakov's, covenant. It's a covenant of Abraham.
Right.
So you brought him into the covenant of Abraham, and when you bring him into the covenant of Abraham, then you cause an atrocity for people that's brought into a holy covenant. So now that's the seriousness of it. So much so that people could say, I'm fighting on the same side, but fighting for this two different reasons. And that's, that'd be another segue for Hanukkah that's coming in today. All right.
That's right.
Shimon had the attitude, which would be a more of a selfish attitude, and I'm only using this here. I can't prove it. I'm just saying. I can't prove it. I just will show the difference between the two guys because of the character later on in history. Is that Shimon would have the attitude is that this is my blood. You don't do this to my blood.
Right.
She's put this personal. Lewi, who later the priest come out of, would say, no, you don't do this to anyone, whether it's us or anybody. You just don't go down like that. That's unrighteous. That's not a godly act. So therefore, Simeon killing you because it's his sister. Levi gonna kill you simply because it's an ungodly act. So they're fighting against it, and executing judgment for two different perspectives. and that's why, like I said, Yaakov, didn't sit well with them because of what they brought in, because they invoked them into the period, into the covenant of God, pretty much so. And Yaakov know more about when you invoke the Creator into a situation that you're wrong in. So, there's a lot of, I only find mostly a lot of debate more so amongst my Israelite community than I do around, say, those is more of a rabbinic community, because everybody consider the move that they did deploy. And plus the book says they answer them with guile and deceit. That means it's already negative. So if it's negative and you can't make it righteous, it's just straight up negative. So I hope people got something out of what I said, and I'll try to cover some of that as I go into the next Sidra next week. Be a little brief because this Hanukkah season is a lot to be considered within this particular time. And any mistakes by my own, any questions, Chief Wolves try to help me out with the chats every now and then, but some questions I'll only address if it's in reference to what I said in the Sidra, and if you have a question concerning what I said concerning this Sidra. All right. So other than that, some people, I just say, okay, that's that's your viewpoint. Amen to that. That's your viewpoint. Amen. With that, like I said, any mistakes by my own, and I hope everybody was able to get something out of that. And I say, an early Shabbat Shalom, and have a happy Hanukkah for those that deserve.
Hallelujah. Torah, Nasik. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.